The widow of Alexei Navalny, Vladimir Putin's most prominent critic, is seeking justice against Russian officials, who she accuses of fatally poisoning Navalny in the prison where they say he died on Friday, and of covering up, she says, his real cause of death. Navalny's team says his mother was told by Russian prison officials that her son had died from, quote, sudden death syndrome, and that his body would not be shown for 2 weeks while expert examinations were carried out. And while his widow, Yulia, promises today to keep her husband's fight alive for the, quote, hope, freedom and future that he and his supporters dreamed of for Russia, vigils and makeshift memorials to Navalny in Russia are being met by arrests and a crackdown by authorities for any show of support for the opposition leader. A prominent rights group says over 400 people have been detained while paying tribute to over a dozen Russian cities, with many fined or ordered to serve up to 15 days in jail. Joining our conversation, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, now an MSNBC international affairs analyst, Michael McFaul. Ambassador McFaul, I wonder what you make of what is happening in Russia right now, the crackdowns on memorials and Navalny's death as a blow to many Russians who had pinned their hopes for democracy on the movement he was leading.
Well, I'd say a couple of things. First of all, I'm inspired by people that have the courage to go out and demonstrate at a time when they know they will face really dire consequences. I think that shows that there are still brave people that share Navalny's values and reject Mr. Putin and his totalitarian dictatorship and his evil, sadistic ways, the way he killed Mr. Navalny. Second, the fact that Putin's regime feels like they have to arrest all these people, I think underscores his weakness. Strong leaders don't have to kill their opponents. Strong leaders defeat their opponents in elections. They don't have to arrest people like this. And I think there's this constant debate here in the West about Putin being strong and supported by everyone. And yet these are small signs that maybe he's not as strong and as revered as everybody thinks.
Ambassador, your reaction to Russian prison officials claiming Navalny died from, quote, sudden death syndrome, his widow accusing them of trying to cover up his murder.
Putin killed Navalny. I don't need to say any more. Maybe we'll know something about the actual causes. Sudden death syndrome seems extremely strange to me. He was just on a video the day before, and he was under horrific circumstances. The way they were poisoning him, they were torturing him, for 3 years under incredibly barbaric conditions. The night before he was killed, Yulia, his wife, described them to me. Make no mistake about that. But had they not arrested him and put him in those conditions, he would not be dead today. He was a strong person physically and mentally and intellectually before his imprisonment. So we just need to report it straight. Putin killed Navalny. And as his wife, Yulia, has asked, we need to hold him accountable for those actions.
I want to play for you some of what Ambassador John Bolton told our colleague Jen Psaki yesterday about Trump's silence and on Russian prison officials claiming Navalny died from sudden death syndrome. Watch.
Trump has been completely silent. He had a 2-hour speech yesterday, said nothing. What do you make of that?
Well, heaven forbid he say anything critical of Vladimir Putin. Look, accidents don't happen in those kinds of Russian prison camps. They told her the cause of death was sudden death syndrome. Well, I'd sure like to know what that is. Maybe it means you're alive 1 minute and dead the next. I don't know what else it can mean.
Ambassador, I want to know what you make of Donald Trump being absolutely silent on Putin specifically this week.
Well, I'm not surprised by it. 4 years ago, when Navalny was poisoned, I wrote a column in the Washington Post saying the whole world is outraged, and Mr. Trump was silent at the time. President Trump was silent at the time. So that's consistent. I don't see him changing. What I don't understand is why other members in his party won't come out and stand for good against evil. Speaker Johnson, exactly along the conversation you were just having. We have the power, not me personally, but literally, Speaker Johnson and his colleagues in the House of Representatives, they have the ability to do something to respond to this horrific assassination and to respond to the horrific killing that is going on every single day in Ukraine. I've heard Speaker Johnson, I've heard other members of his party speak very clearly about good versus evil. I was just in Munich with some of them. They were using that language. Rarely do you have an opportunity to do something concrete to fight evil. They have it. It's right in their hands, and they should do it and not worry about the consequences of Mr. Trump, because I guarantee you history will not be kind to them if they don't. I'm reading a lot of literature for a course I'm teaching right now on the 1930s, and a lot of Americans said some really pretty damning things about not worrying about Hitler, not worrying about the wars there, not our problems. Those statements and those inactions look extremely damning in hindsight. These guys, as Speaker Johnson and the lead, have the opportunity to not be part of that and do the right thing. It's literally in their hands right now.
And Ambassador, the fact that you have the former president comparing himself to Alexei Navalny, I have to imagine that made your skin crawl.
Yeah, I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. I just hope that others in his party can see the difference. That is an atrocious comparison. And you're right. I don't even have words to respond. I just want people to do the right thing when they have the power to do the right thing.
I guess my curiosity, after you're having spent so much time in Munich with global leaders, is do you get the sense that they are having conversations, that they are bracing for the possibility, one, of Donald Trump and a second term? But even with or without Donald Trump, the fact that if we go back to what David Jolly was saying, there has been a pivot within the Republican Party to embrace authoritarianism, to not commit to democracy as a core ethos of the United States.
Well, I'd say two things. First of all, the world is scared to death of the return of Donald Trump. And it goes back to the 1930s. They worry that we're just going to quit on the world, that we're going to say, that's not my problem over there, that's not my problem over there. And we know how that decade ended in the horrific tragedy of World War II, and that everybody's nervous about that, especially leaders from our frontline NATO allies that worry 2 to 3 years from now, if Putin prevails in Ukraine, that his army and his military industrial complex will become stronger. And then when it comes to a test of the NATO alliance, Mr. Trump will back down. That was the 1930s vibe in Munich all over. But the second thing, to your point about the Republican Party, yes, that is a movement towards supporting authoritarianism. But I think that fight is not over yet. I know Republicans, I met with them in Munich, who agree with me, but they're just afraid of Mr. Trump. And I hope that for some, immediately, maybe they'll get through their primaries and then might have the courage to do the right thing. They're worried right now in the immediate run. But in the long run, I hope they're also going to fight not just for their party, but for the United States of America. If we are not the leader of the free world, if we abdicate that responsibility, the consequences for small d Democrats all over the world will be bad, but it will be bad for us as well. It will come back to haunt us. And I'm cautiously optimistic that that fight within the Republican Party is still going on. And I hope the right side of that fight wins.
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you. So I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Wheelie.
So, come on, what is it now, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah, I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I'll assume that we're good on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
The Megatron.
This was just a diversion. Security, please bring him up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. What's readiness? What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We are facing a heavy, sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark. General, watch out! General! Need to evac immediately. Hold on. National security evac. Celebration.